going to talk about building back better municipalities after a flood. I'm in my 14th year in this job. We get floods all the time. 2011, there was an inundation flooding in northern Vermont. In Dummerston, there was just one storm cell that sat on top of this mountain for like 3.5 hours. I get there and I'm like, oh my gosh. Then Irene hits, I go back and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the same, but the gravel is much higher. So this is about people, flood resiliency and public safety, economy, reduce adverse impacts and costs, environment, aquatic and terrestrial wildlife. What's good for fish is good for us and good for our budget. I've written Vermont Rivers and Roads training up here. Is anybody taking that? Good. What did you think?
Thought it was really good.
Okay. Thought it was really good. We've had over 600 people go through it. And I know a lot of people. Been living in Vermont since 1976. I see people at the gas station, grocery store. What did you think of the training? 2 people close to retirement in V-Trans. Well, there's some things I didn't agree with it about. And I thought, oh, good. You agree with most of it. So, Todd Eaton, V-Trans, the local roads program, he's not here. Will Eldridge is going to be, he's remote. He's a fisheries biologist from Fish and Wildlife. You got to treat, folks. David Vallee, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. He's in the National Water Management Program. They're developing a software that he's going to make a presentation on, and it is fabulous. So if I could, who's with us here? How many of you are serving the community as a municipal manager? Nobody. We've got some servicemen. Thank you for serving. Who's road commissioner in town? Road commissioner. Road foreman. Road foreman. Who's striking out? Town clerk. Select board member. Select board member. Board of alderman. Alderman. Was that a hand up?
I'm a select board.
Good. Planning commission. Planning commission. One. Zoning board. Zoning board. Wow. I'm kind of curious. Who am I talking to? Conservation commission. Conservation commission. Okay, help me out. Okay. Any other roles I missed? What are the other roles I missed? Somebody just sing out. What do you do?
Regional Planning Commission? Regional Planning Commission?
Good. Okay, that's good. This is about respect, protect, enjoy. Build back better roads. David Vallee is going to talk to you about implementation of forecasting flood inundation. Todd Eaton can't be here from V-Trans. You get 10 minutes more for Q&A. This is the sustainability diagram. If you can hit, oh boy. I'm cheating, you're getting a preview, you're not supposed to. If you can hit this middle overlap, that's the sustainability that you hear about. Does the social and environment bearable? Is the social and economic equitable? Is the environment and economic viable? If you can hit that bullseye, it's a win-win-win. That's why I've got here, respect, protect, enjoy. So what I'm talking about is people, flood resiliency, public safety, road, culvert, and bridge crossings over streams. I've got my contact information here. It's also at the end. Anybody interested in the Rivers and Roads training program? I'm no longer in it. I want to be retired by now. But do want to promote it. If anybody's interested, I can, take my email down and I can get you information. I'm not going to read all of this. Irene was an anomaly. This is all of the floods from 1973 to 2011. Flood of 1973, statewide. I saw the first town bridge at my house get whacked. Gone. I read the V-Trans report last year. I've seen it whacked 7 times. At the bottom, action required, replace bridge. I said, good. I'm tired of this. Now, in building back better municipalities, We've had 53 dams removed in Vermont as of 2022. We've got more coming out. Flood control dams only operate empty. All the rest of them operate full and increase flooding. So here is a hydrograph. This is discharge increasing, time increasing. On-stream dams make flooding worse. We take them out and it reduces flooding. If you're not familiar with a hydrograph, I did it again. This is start of the rain. This is peak flood here. I'm sorry, time to peak here, peak flood here. Before encroachment, I want you to know this is the same area as the same volume of water that you're seeing on this hydrograph. If we go to before encroachment, think back 500 years. It was just the American Indians, the deer, the bear, very little impervious surfaces. We come in, we start building stuff. So the peak is higher and the water is sooner. The reason we say don't build in a floodplain, we're not telling you to take it out, but we want to drive this back this way. We don't want to keep going that way and having more infrastructure whacked, okay? I saw 3 of the locations where the 6 people passed in Irene. That still bothers me today.
I'm sorry, did we build dams to be able to build more properties? What do you mean by,
Okay.
like, why do we have
These are,
dams?
I'm gonna show you examples. These are dams that are not used for any purpose anymore. Some people say defunct dams, unused dams. I've got an example in here to show you. This is the Dunkley Pond Dam removal. This is before it was removed, and flow is coming down this way. Look at all the water. There was no grout in this. It was crumbling, definite public safety threat. Over in here is a house. The city of Rutland knows 9 times it's been evacuated. But because of attrition, people retiring, it's been evacuated before that too. The first floor, see this drop right here? The first floor is lower than the top of the dam. Whoever built that building was not thinking. It was built around 1792. Very poor condition. Used to be an old mill pond. Before that, it was for ice harvesting. In dam safety program, it's a significant hazard dam. Here is after Irene. The dam is down here. It was 6 feet deep. Look at all the sediments from Irene. When this was taken out and the sediments taken out, this is Tenney Brook, flows eventually into Lake Champlain. 400 pounds of phosphorus removed that doesn't get to Lake Champlain and causes the increased algae blooms. So poor water quality. I mean, it stunk. It was murky. There was literally, the first time I was there was a dead fish laying on the bottom, belly up. Now this is the buffer planting, 5th of 6, and it takes a village to plant a repairing buffer. Look at all the people. Plus there's one other person over here. And that was the least number that we'd had. Green it up on the 26th that was done. Everybody goes away smiling. Here it is. Now it's all vegetated. I stopped taking pictures like 2-3 years ago. It's been out 5 or 6 years now. So restored the floodplain. The house that I was talking about is down over here. Hasn't been flooded since. They've not had to evacuate it. That dam was about 13 feet tall, and it's proven to reduce flooding. Now, with these, generally, they're old enough that they need historic preservation. This is a beautiful kiosk. The dam used to be down here. This is a little pocket park. And at the top here, it's talking about our indigenous peoples use of that 13,000 years. That's a long time. They are extremely happy when we take these out. Now, I'm down in Mendon. This bridge got whacked in Irene. I got a lot of pushback. We just need to fix the bridge. They finally relented that, no, you got to make it higher and wider. And it's not been impacted in any of these floods since. This is a Green Mountain National Forest culvert stream channel outlet. This was built to our standards before Irene hit. Larger culvert, and this was not damaged in the Irene flood. Gotta pick up the pace here. This is V-Trans Route 12 into Woodstock is here. DDIR, Damage Discovery Incident Report. I went on like 3 of those, 3 days. We looked at a lot. A lot of them had to be rebuilt. This channel was over excavated. This has been fixed. The riprap went down about, 6 feet in. Look at this. There's no floodplain on this side. They took it out. Are you with me? Built it, evaluated it, took it out. This is a stacked rock wall. So now it's stabilizing the down cutting. There was some gravel that was put back into some big rocks. This is what frosts me as a taxpayer. 5 times we've spent money here, all these other ones. And same general shot. You know, it's all grown up and I can't remember where was I standing. It's pretty similar. Oh. You can't see that stacked rock wall. You drive by, you don't even know there's riprap there. Here's the cost savings. The material that was taken out, the dirt, was stockpiled off the screen here down, up north, going north. The rock represented a heat island. It would heat up in the sun. They saved the money. They put it back, seeded, mulched it, and the heat island effect is not there. The bugs here fall in, feed the fish. Wow, Northfield did a great job. This is their Build Back Better example. Across is an old industrial building. So it was 7 years from concept to completion, and they were dogged about it. Now, can't read down here, Friends of the Winooski River did this. If you're familiar with FEMA's Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, I was involved in a lot of those. Those were fabulous to have those removed from the floodplain. 7 were bought out here to restore this floodplain for the Dog River for flood resilience. This is one of the 2 landscape plans I've got for you. The houses were taken out. You're going to see a picture going this way from last summer's flood. Oh, gazebos and picnic tables, benches for bird watching, river access points, 2 or 3, I think. Pollinator gardens to support the bees that would pollinate the local gardens. Planning and fundraising, 2014 to 2017, implementation done in 2018. Here's another look at it, and it's now a restored floodplain. It slopes up very gently. A lot of the volunteers enjoyed the work. It was very rewarding for the Northfield community. Here's a aerial photo. I've got another one coming. So you can see the layout of the paths, and same thing, buyout buildings. I've already talked about that. Successful. Oh, here we go. Reduce the water elevation 6 inches. That may not seem like a lot, but check out this photo. This is last summer aerial photo, and this is where the 7 homes were on this side. There's that bridge I said you're going to see an aerial photo. These homes here did not get water on the first floor. Water in their basements, but not on their first floor. Huge for these people. This is last summer. Getting back to that same, can we hit the sustainability bullseye? That's the only place that we can permit things if you're there. If you're over here, can't. Why did I make a lot of enemies in that meeting? So, questions? Again, oh, no, I didn't put my information on here. I'll go back. You probably can't see it all the way to the back, but maybe people in the front can see it. My contact info. Where did I put it?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So these dams that you're talking about that were removed,
Yep.
but then you have dams like Wrightsville Dam that serves a purpose of
Every person is different.
every dam.
Dam is different.
Right. So what were these 53? Were these like old timey dams
Okay.
that?
Wrightsville Dam, is that a flood control dam?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Designed to operate empty. So what they do with the people that are monitoring, because you don't just build a flood control dam and then you walk away. There's somebody usually it's a team of two, depends on the size of the dam. And then there's telemetry that reports to the office. You know, it's been raining, the staff will go look at that. Oh my gosh, we got to let some water out because it's going to rain for the next 3 days. So that's one kind. They've all got historic different purposes. But if they're not being used, I didn't put that in here. I could have printed them off and brought them. If you have an interest, you know any dam removal projects, you can email me. I've got a PDF 1 page. On-stream dam, adverse impacts, you remove the dam, all good impacts. Now there's 8 things. Water quality is a big one because it warms up the water. Changes the nutrient mix because all the sediments drop out behind, blocks not only fish passage, wildlife. This Dunkley Dam project, the neighbor, 37 neighbors that I had to work with. Because every time, the first public meeting, you're taking that dam out on my dead body. I used to play in that with my kids as my grandparents. I played with that with my kids. I want my grandchildren to play. They got all kinds of reasons. All the birds come back. The fish come back when the machine stops in the afternoon, scatter in the next morning at 7 a.m. This was deer, bobcat, fisher cats, all kinds of great blue herons, mallards, bunnies. All of the neighbors were, Todd, you wouldn't believe what I saw yesterday. I've got a picture of 4 deer standing in this after the dam was done, the project was done. The wildlife come back. The people are like, oh, it doesn't stink anymore. It doesn't look terrible. The water is clear. It's not milky. I could talk a lot about dam removals. I'm going to shut up because I'm over time.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I was in the earlier talk about the flooding from last year, and they showed a photograph of, there was a mudslide in Ripton. And I hadn't seen that aerial view before, but it triggered something in me because from the aerial view, you could see up above the house where the mudslide was, it looked like an agricultural field where they had mowed to the edge. And coming from Virginia, where I lived for many, many years, and I had to deal with the Chesapeake Bay Act, which is to help restore the water quality in the Chesapeake Bay, you had regulations where you have to have a 50-foot buffer against any water source. And I don't know if there are those rules here, but I feel like I see logging happening on state land and also federal land, where they log right up to the edge of a cliff, and then down below that cliff, of course, there's a stream. And I'm just wondering, why is that allowed? It is just asking for a mudslide. And is there any legislation on the books to kind of look at the Chesapeake Bay Act and say, can we learn from that here in Vermont, and would it be useful? I also heard, on the radio this morning, we all know about the agricultural runoff. My daughter's a dairy farmer, so I sympathize with their, with their needs. But, to keep,
So
you
folks,
get where I'm going.
if you didn't hear all the way in the back, she's asking about landslides, repairing buffers. Yes, we've got all kinds of stuff. 3 things water works. Last summer, we got a lot more rain than we did before Irene. Water coming down, the groundwater coming out, and the stream flow going down. Those are the 3 actions on landslides. We don't have time. I could do a week session on landslides. There are a lot. I drive around my area, and particularly since last year, this spring. I'm like, oh boy, and I'm working on a couple now on the Ottaquechee River. Folks, we got 2 more people to go, and I took my questions when I'm done. If you've got any questions for me afterwards, please see me, but don't ask, because the other 2 presenters need some time. Will, I think you're on next.
Go, Will.
Great. Okay, thanks. Yeah, great. So I wanted to kind of follow up on what Todd was talking about there, specifically focusing on culverts, and talk about how Vermont is moving in the right direction with a lot of the work that we've done to replace and install culverts up to our standards. So he mentioned the Rivers and Roads program. That's an important program for teaching people about river process and basically how to live with rivers. And one of the things that we focus on the fishery side in particular is the culverts. And so for those folks who don't know, so Vermont has standards for sizing of culverts. They have to be 1 times bankful width. And what we were able to do last year is show the success of these standards for flood resiliency. So these are pictures from last year, July 2023. These are a bunch of this is what happened to a lot of our older culverts, our older infrastructure. They a lot of them failed because they're just undersized. So these, historically culverts were sized for flood capacity, hydraulic capacity, generally about a 25-year flood, and they weren't designed to carry material like wood or rocks and things like that. And so, a lot of our culverts failed, and largely it was due to this accumulation of wood. And again, these are mostly the older structures. But so we get interested in culverts because on the fish side, because they can also be barriers to aquatic organism passage. And so what we've done in Vermont is we've established these standards that provides both flood resiliency as well as the aquatic habitat benefits. And so the Vermont Stream Alteration General Permit has conditions for new structures, new culverts and bridges that speaks to the size, the slope, alignment, opening height, embedment, and aquatic organism passage. So the ability of fish and other organisms to move upstream and downstream unimpeded. The most important thing for folks to take away is this condition of 1 times bankful width. And so the bankful width, that's the size of the stream when it spills out onto its banks, during a flood. It's generally like a 1 to 2 year flood event. And so by sizing our culverts to the bankful width, it allows material to pass through them. So trees and things. And we saw that last year. We actually saw culverts were not impacted. And so there's these design guidance for anybody looking to build a new culvert. Fish and Wildlife Department worked with an engineer to develop these. These are now standards for the Agency of Transportation, and municipalities use these. And then we've also got this rivers and roads training. And so this is it's required by Act 138. Came along. It started before Irene, but it really ramped up after Irene. It's focused on state and municipal transportation staff. Todd just updated. It's more than 600 people have attended, and it's a 2-day training, and it's a combination of classroom presentations as well as field demonstrations, talking about the fish aquatic habitat side as well as the river process and restoration side of things. And then there's also a stream table, so a chance for people to actually on a small scale develop a stream and experiment with different approaches to managing their stream. And I think probably the most important concept, that bank full width concept, that's how you scale from the smallest ephemeral stream all the way up to the biggest main stem Winooski or Ottaquiche. Everything scales by bank full width. So just that concept is probably the most important thing to take away. And then, like I said, so we went out after the floods last year and we inspected about 60 culverts. About half of them were ones that had been replaced since 2011 to our standards. So this for size, bank full width. And what we found is that none of those structures were impacted. They were all intact. And there's really, you couldn't even tell that they had been in a flood. They looked, like ideally what we want is that basically the stream did not know it's going under a road. That's the intention with these new these standards. And there's some evidence, there's examples like this. So a failed culvert just downstream of a recently replaced culvert that was totally intact. And so there's a couple examples like this where we have it just showed the resilience of these standards that we have for culverts. And but associated with this is the impacts of wood and the concerns that folks have around wood. And so what we want to make sure folks recognize is that while it's okay to remove wood when there's a threat, immediate threat to human life and safety and infrastructure, it's not necessary to go in areas where there's not a whole lot of development and clear out the stream. And so after Irene, there was a lot of dredging in large portions of streams and rivers, and basically they turned into fish deserts. So a situation like this down in Bethel, this is not good fish habitat, and material was totally cleared out. Berms were built up on the side. And so basically what this does it keeps the water in the channel and it just turns it into a pipe. So basically all that flood water now is just going downstream and causing even more damage down there. This also is not providing good fish habitat. And so we went out after Irene and surveyed a number of areas that were altered and non-altered. And what we found is that those altered areas had 50% or less of the trout population in the unaltered sections. So a huge reduction in fish populations. And some of these reductions lasted up and continue to last. We still haven't seen the populations recover. Just because the structure, the cover hasn't recovered yet. There's nowhere for the fish to hide during flows. And so we like to say fish grow on trees. And so we're actually, Fish and Wildlife Department, we're actually going back and reinstalling trees, putting them back into streams and rivers where it's safe to do so. And what we found is that this can increase biomass by up to 300%. For brook trout in some of these sections. So that cover is really important, those places for them to hide. And we also found that last year that that's where the fish are able to find refuge during these floods. So they actually get up under these log jams and they'll just ride out the flood. And so these, people are, when they ask, how do floods impact fish habitat or fish? What we find is that as long as there's cover, log jams and boulders and things like that, the fish are okay. And they'll actually bounce back probably, pretty quickly from a flood. And the challenge is when streams and rivers get dredged out. That's where we begin to lose our populations. And then not to say that there's not going to be a concern for trees moving into streams and into occupied areas, cities and towns and things. And so there are some strategies to try and control that. So these wooden debris racks, we're looking into more natural structure. So actually creating oversized log jams, actually kind of engineering them to some extent to collect wood and stuff. And so the other thing about this wood is it can also provide flood resiliency in areas that are not developed where it's safe to do so. It can, slow down the water and spread it out onto the floodplain, and we can reduce the amount of water, the speed that it's reaching these developed areas. So kind of that hydrograph that Todd showed earlier, where you have your peak. What we're trying to do is sink slow and spread the water, and so wood is one of the tools that we use to do that. So again, it's a balance. We obviously don't want to have the impacts to human health and safety, but in areas that it's safe to do so, to try and maintain that wood in the stream system. And all right, that's all I've got for now. But so we happy to answer any questions, or probably just hand it off to David, and then if there's time at the end, we can take more questions then.
All right, thank you, William. That was a very interesting presentation. So things we don't often think about when we're issuing flood forecasts is the impact on the fish, for example. All right, now let's see if I can be as successful as you and share my screen with the group. Judging by that monitor, I think we're good to go. Just the mic check, you're able to hear me?
Yes.
All right, excellent, thank you. And Todd, good to see you as well, sir. Thank you for the invite. So my name is David Vallee. Pleasure to be with you this morning. As a former graduate of the great Lyndon State College, it is really a thrill to be able to do this for the lovely state of Vermont, where I got to spend 4 enjoyable years of my life back, way back in the mid and late 1980s. So I used to run the Northeast River Forecast Center, which is one of 13 of those in the nation. And 2 years ago, I got asked to join the staff at our National Water Center down in Alabama. And my job over the last 2 years has been helping to put together the training and outreach material and to help lead the charge of the National Weather Service new flood inundation forecast services that we have running currently over 10% of the nation. Our National Water Center is helping to develop that capability so that our rural forecast centers and the weather offices like Albany, who serve as the southern portion of the state, Bennington and Windham counties, and the Burlington office that serves the rest of Vermont with daily forecast, warnings, and of course now impact-based decision support services. What we want to do is be able to develop these tools, provide them to our field offices and to our partners like all of you in emergency management to help you make better decisions, more informed decisions in advance of these both local, small scale, and some of these large scale horrific floods that unfortunately your state has kind of angered the weather gods. And I don't know what you did, but these last 2 summers certainly have shown what a warmer atmosphere, a warmer ocean, and slow moving weather systems can do when you put all of that moisture up into the terrain of northern New England. So the next 10 minutes or so, I'm just going to very gracefully walk through what our national rollout looks like and the underlying reasons why we're doing what we're doing. I've got some examples for you from last year's flooding in Vermont, just to give you a sample of what these services look like. Keep in mind that while they are visualizations that are available to you on our website, currently only for the southern part of the state, they are also available for download, where they're available nationwide in that 10% area as actual GIS services. So, you know, a local EOC, a local land use plan, or something like that can actually bring these forecast services right into your own GIS architecture, and then overlay that service with your own infrastructure. Let's see. I want to make sure you can still see my screen. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Excellent. And then the last thing we'll do is I'll just walk through our websites with you to expose you to where these services are currently available and how you can actually view them in real time. So first, the underlying reason of why we're doing this. The big reason simply is after some of these big flood events, as an agency, the National Weather Service has done service assessments. So we go in and we talk to the folks that have been impacted. We talk to the basin commissioners, to the local emergency managers, to the state governance. And, you know, to a person over the last decade and a half, two messages have kind of been resoundingly put to us. Number one, the value of our existing warnings that our weather offices and river centers provide to you. The daily forecasts at the larger river locations and the warnings that the weather offices issue. But there are a couple of massive gaps. And one of the biggest ones was the inability for us on a large scale to actually map where that water is going to be on the ground. And that has now, finally, we've begun to wrestle that one to the ground by developing a suite of services that allow us to take a forecast, either from the river forecast centers or a forecast from our new national water model, and actually translate those flow forecasts into an extent of inundation, where that water is going to be in the ground, and to accompany that with the timing. When's it going to get there? When is it going to peak? And when will that water finally get below what we call a high flow threshold? That's not quite when flooding begins, but a flow value that's representative of where we want to make sure folks are paying attention. We have a couple of congressional drivers that I mentioned on this slide that are not only driving us to do this, mandating that we deliver these services, but also helping to provide the funding to do the scientific research and the development of the infrastructure on our websites to deliver the services to you. First of all, it's in the Commerce Strategic Plan, and then we have support through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Title III of the Coastal Ocean Observations and Research Act. Both of those are huge catalysts to provide us the funding to work with our academic and partners and our other federal partners, such as the U.S. Geological Survey and the Corps of Engineers, and FEMA for that matter, to help build upon the services and help us test, evaluate, and continue to evolve them as we move forward. So currently we are in phase one of what will be a 4-year rollout of forecasts of inundation on rivers and streams nationwide. The two shaded areas you see in green are where we started this last September, and it does include both Windham and Bennington counties in southern Vermont, because they are part of the Albany forecast service area. So we did a little bit up in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, and we're doing this also in Texas right now, where services are online. They're being delivered every single day for use whenever you have flooding threatening your area. We are currently just a couple of weeks away from expanding the services to phase two, where we will now be doing this for over 30% of the United States population. We move into this area based on our social vulnerability information and the frequency of flooding. That's why you see us coming into the Appalachians. We bring on Puerto Rico and also the Pacific Northwest. So for the rest of Vermont, you're going to be in next year's service expansion. By September, the end of September 2025, we will have completed training with the Burlington Forecast Office, and they will train their partners in the area. And we will turn these services on live on our websites. Again, that'll be at the end of September of 2025 for the remainder of Vermont. And then in our final phase, we'll bring it to the coast and we'll take it into the Intermountain West. So that's our four-year rollout. Right now, Southern Vermont's been involved with that first phase. So as I said, we've got two ways of doing this. We can take the flows from our 18 or so river forecast points that serve the state of Vermont at these point-specific locations. But in our technique, we're able to take that flow forecast at one location and actually route that water all the way downstream to the confluence to the next river system, whether it be in the Lake Champlain or down the Connecticut River. But the national water model running across the nation multiple times a day allows us to also map that inundation on every small river and stream, gauged or ungauged, across the entire country. And we do this using a method called height above nearest drainage, where we have merged together the delineation of our rivers and streams provided by the USGS. And we marry that to their three-dimensional elevation program to create what we call a hydrofabric, which is simply a digitized representation of the Earth's surface with the rivers and streams delineated in them. And this provides us the background by which we can then take a forecast of river volume and actually map it on that river system over the next 5 days. And that's the service that we're providing today for 10% of the nation. Last year, we had these services running in prototype mode while that devastating flooding was unfolding across interior Vermont. And you see here a couple of images from those services where we had flooding up in Weston, flooding down in Londonderry, and also, of course, the big floods in Montpelier again. So we're using these events where we're not running it publicly to help evaluate and continue to calibrate the models and the technique that we're using to generate the inundation. But the real power behind this is that we're able to do this not only where the Weather Service provides a forecast at a gauge. We're able to do this, as you see in these images, on all the small tributaries where we know we have people living and where businesses reside. And with these services, being in a GIS framework, we can bring it right down to the neighborhood level. And that's what we're doing, and why we train our forecasters is to how to speak to this, to understand the limitations. You put water on a map like this, and it looks pretty accurate, but we realize that there's a lot of uncertainty in every prediction we make, whether it be how much rain fell, whether it be how much is going to fall in the future, and also the limitations of the hand technique itself. And those are the types of things that we educate our forecasters on, and then we go out and our train our emergency management partners. So they understand what they're looking at when they see, a map of this blue shade indicating inundation, like we saw during the flooding over Vermont last summer. So we have 3 forecast services that are currently being generated. Again, right now, publicly available for Windham and Bennington counties in Vermont. That includes an hourly analysis where we take the water model's hourly stream flow analysis. So that's not a forecast, it's a snapshot of what we believe the flows are. And we're able to map the inundation associated with that volume of water at that moment in time. And then we have 2 5-day predictions, one of which driven by the official Weather Service forecast coming from the Northeast River Forecast Center, where we map that water from that location downstream to the mouth or the confluence to the next river system. And then we also do this with the National Water Model, over 3.4 million river reaches nationwide. So these services are available in 2 locations where they are publicly available. The first of which at viewer.weather.know.gov/water is on what we call the National Weather Service's GIS viewer. We have a tab on that viewer specifically for water resources and flooding. And here you can see, where the area is that we're serving and I've highlighted in red. And within this area, we're providing those forecasts, predicted inundation whenever we have high flows and flooding forecast in the region. Here you can also get at some of the other what we call spatial displays, such as the timing. When will that water arrive? What will the peak flow arrival time be? And when may that water actually get within its banks? Those are just some of the services that are available for our partners to use. Then back in March of this year, we launched our replacement to what we used to call AHAVS, our Advanced Hydrologic Prediction Service. That was our front-end web service system. What we've done is we've created a new one and put it in the cloud so it's much more effective, more efficient, and it's very mobile friendly. It allows you to get at gauge-specific forecast information literally at the snap of a finger. So we call this new system NWIPS for the National Water Prediction Service. And whenever you've got high flows or flooding forecast over Vermont, you can zoom in there and click on a particular location. You can see the actual inundation extent that we're predicting. You can view beside it the actual forecast from the River Forecast Center or your local weather office in Albany or Burlington. If you'd like, you can actually also, in any gauged location, see the forecasts that are coming out of our national water model for that same location. And then we've also developed what we call the static inundation profiles called categorical fit. They are based on the stages that the weather officers have identified that equate to action, minor, moderate, and major flooding at any of the gauge locations we forecast for. So these types of services aren't updating in real time. These are static. They're always there for you to reference. They can be used to help couch the expectation. Say if we're forecasting a probability of moderate flooding, you can at least look at this in those particular areas where it's available and get a feel of where there could be inundation. We also use these to help calibrate our techniques. And we like to work with our partners to verify that these inundation extents are actually as accurate as they look. So working with our partners in the emergency management community is critical to our success.
Hey, Dave, I hate to rush you, but we are starting to get, we're running overtime at this point. So if you would possibly be able to wrap up and then we can have a really quick Q&A. I know we're up against lunch here as well.
No, this is my last one.
Thank you.
So as I said, over Vermont, they're currently available over Bennington and Windham counties. And in September of next year, the services will expand over the remainder of Vermont. So that's my last slide. I'd be happy to take any questions before you folks break for lunch.